Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After into the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Lots of rumors on today's show. A lot of speculation that has no merit to it when you really look deep into it. But anyway, we're going to start with the stuff that does have merit. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins sign Willie Gay, former Kansas City Chief, obviously won a Super Bowl with them, plays middle linebacker / outside linebacker. The Dolphins are signing former Chief starter ESPN Jeremy Fowler. Reports a 2-time Super Bowl starter. Gay will join a Dolphins team that has done some linebacker shuffling recently. We know that. I believe it's a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year, $3 million deal. I don't know why it's so far down the article. He didn't play a lot for New Orleans last year. I think he only started. Yeah, he played 15 games and he only started 8 of them, which isn't the worst. Gay's 27% usage rate on defense paled in comparison to his role in Kansas City. Yeah, it dropped way off when he went to New Orleans. Honestly, two different people. The Kansas City version of him. Now, I haven't done a lot of research on Willie Gay in New Orleans, but when he was with Kansas City, I mean, I think everybody who was a football fan has watched a lot of Kansas City Chief games. When he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was a pretty good player, and as this details, like he played a lot for them, and really physical, athletic player. And then he goes to New Orleans and just is pretty much relegated to being a special teams guy. So maybe they can capture some. I mean, I feel like this is a very good depth signing. One of the better depth signings. And obviously the additions of KJ Britt as well. And then they signed Tyler Dodson. It's a pretty good room for depth. I like Tyler Dodson's potential, especially on the edge, as like more of an outside linebacker guy, especially in this Ravens defense. Willie Gay can do some of the same things. He can play in the middle too. I feel like physical player, good athlete. I don't know where he is at this point in his career. He's still below 30. He hasn't even hit 30 yet. So that's good. So maybe he was not healthy last year. Maybe the scheme wasn't the best fit for him. They played a lot of man coverage. They run a lot of nickel, and that didn't sound on defense. So, and they had Demario Davis, who's a very good player for them. So at the very least, and especially since we don't know what's going to happen in the draft, he's going to be a very good role special teams backup player, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I actually like this signing, even though he's not the same player, at least coming off of last year. It doesn't seem like it. And I don't know if there was any other circumstances that led to that. But if he's just going to be a special teams good depth guy, then that's cool. And it's better than what they've had, like Duke Riley. Like, I would much rather have Willie Gay than Duke Riley, which is, I think, a great upgrade. And he's in KJ Britt, too. Like, the special teams is going to be a lot better this year from a lot of different angles. I mean, getting Stonehouse? God, what's his name? The punter from Tennessee, who's very good. They've added a lot of really nice... And they lost Sierra Neal to San Francisco, which is kind of a big blow, but they've made a lot of moves where it's like, it's not that bad. I mean, they got KJ Britt, they got Willie Gay, who can both be really good special teams players. They got better at the punter position. They still have a pretty good kicker, Jason Sanders. So yeah, I'm liking where special teams is headed, which is good. And yeah, there's not much else to say about Willie Gay. So moving on from that, the Dolphins re-signed Benito Jones. I believe it's a 1-year deal for $1 million. Now, God bless him. He's a good, not that many snaps a game guy. You don't want him to be out there a lot. He's a good fit for the Ravens defense. I don't know what I can't wait for this offseason to be over and then training camp starts to really get a grasp on what is going to happen. I think at the very least we can all say that there's going to be a lot of young players on this team for this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how well they do in this draft. Because obviously they've been stockpiling draft picks. They have 10 of them. They're getting even more compensatory picks because of the free agent losses. So they're putting all their eggs in the draft basket. So, and we're going to talk about some other free agency stuff later that went on. But sticking to Benito specifically, there is a clear void there. We don't know if Calais Campbell's coming back. That position is pretty much open. We don't know who's filling it. And Benito Jones, and Deshaun Hand's no longer on the roster either. Benito Jones isn't the answer to that. Zach Sealer is still a very good player. And thank God they still have Zach Sealer. So they can kind of skate by. They don't have to get premium in that position. They just need someone who can play there. And I don't know if Benito is that guy. I think, again, he's more of a rotational guy. So they're going to have to do something with this position. And there was a lot of pretty good defensive tackles in free agency and corners. And they opted not to do either one of those two things. And to be frank, or to be fair, the draft that is coming is pretty, especially where the Dolphins are picking at 13, there's a lot of really good potential, and I would hate for them to pick a defensive tackle. So I hope that doesn't happen. That'd be the worst case scenario. But there's good secondary guys there, whether it's safety or corner. Will Johnson could fall. I know a lot of people like the guy out of South Carolina. Sparks or Starks. I think it's Sparks or Starks. I don't know. I'm getting their names mixed up. The safety from Georgia, a lot of people love. Those are all potential picks there. And those are positions the Dolphins didn't necessarily address, even though they addressed safety, which I think is a good thing. Maybe we don't pick him. I like him as a player coming out of Georgia. He's a very talented player, but there's just, I don't know. There's other players that I would rather have at 13, so maybe they're more comfortable picking someone else that who knows who's going to fall to 13 though, so who knows, but definitely a position, defensive tackle, they're still going to need to address. This signing, again, the Benito Jones signing doesn't do much for me. The Willie Gay signing, yeah, it's a really good signing. It's good for the locker room too, and it's good for depth, and it's good for special teams. That's a good signing. Benito, we don't know. He's a decent rotational guy. This next news story, Dolphins lose River Craycraft to the Seattle Seahawks. This comes from Dolphins Wire. Pretty bad. Jalen Waddle posted an Instagram post of him being upset about it. It's okay, whatever. Yeah, I don't really care. He didn't, newsflash, the last 2 years he was a Dolphin, he barely played due to injury, which is unfortunate. It sucks that we needed him. And he, and I feel like one of the bigger reasons they got rid of Trent Sherfield was because they thought that he could play more than he did, and then that didn't work out. And so yeah, it was time to move on from Craycraft. I've never been the biggest fan of Rivers. He's definitely, I feel like he's played a lot better than I've even given him credit for, but I think it's a good thing that they replaced him with Ikine from Tennessee. I think it's a giant upgrade. This doesn't really matter. People forget they got Malik Washington last year in the draft, who did very well for them towards the end of the year. I love his game. So there was really no reason to keep Craycraft. So this doesn't really bother me at all. Is there anything else credible? We talked about Calais Campbell, how there's an offer. We talked about that last week. So, and yeah, Emmanuel Ogbah's still out there as well. The edge doesn't, one of the things that's really, okay, here we go. I forgot about it. To elaborate on the Emmanuel Ogbah situation. This comes from Pro Football Rumors and Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Dolphins have submitted an offer to Emmanuel Ogbah, but a deal is not imminent. So they want him to come back. We'll see if that happens. There's been a lot of weird speculation about free agency from many different beat writers, and it seems like it's pure speculation. And it's actually like blowing my mind because first of all, the Dolphins did not have that much cap space. Now, a lot of people have pointed out the fact, well, they could have done some restructures with some players, and they did do that. They didn't do it with Tua. A lot of people have brought that up, that could have freed up a lot of cap space, and still can if if it happens, it happens. But clearly, I don't know. I don't know what to believe about that. You know, the speculation is, let's start there, that Stephen Ross didn't want to spend as much money. But there's no credible reporting about that. There's not even a source that they got this from within the organization. So I don't know. I guess it's literally just pure speculation. That whole thing, and it's been written about a couple of times from different people. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know if people have kept up with the free agency reporting this year, a lot of people didn't love this free agent class around the NFL. I'm not saying that's just their opinion. Maybe the Dolphins weren't the most fond of this class. I still think they did a pretty decent job. I mean, they didn't... You know, I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of James Daniels. I think that was a giant signing, and it's a huge step in the right direction. And to be honest with you, that's the only thing I really wanted. And it really gives them an opportunity, whether they'll execute it or not, to really, just like put a bow on the offensive line in the draft. I think we're all hoping and praying that happens, and so they've set themselves up for, I think, great improvement. It just depends on what happens in the draft. I don't like, there's been a few articles like that referencing the Dolphins from the beat writers that it's just pure speculation. That I'm not a huge fan of that. Omar Kelly made a piece about, who's a longtime beat writer for the Dolphins, who's like, oh, the O-line, we were promised for them to fix the offensive line, and they didn't do it. It's like, well, the offseason, for number one, the offseason isn't over yet. They did address the guard position in free agency with a pretty big name and a very talented player in Daniels. So that article just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like, they could easily still keep that promise this offseason. And by the way, guard is not that big of a taxing position. A lot of people play rookie tackles inside. And then that's happened a lot. There's been a lot of young offensive linemen that have made huge impacts in recent memory in the last 3 or 4 years. I can name 3 or 4 that have made impacts. I mean, even more than that. I mean, Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, Tristan Wirfs. Who is the player for Skoronski, the guard for Tennessee, that they just drafted? He made a big impact for them last year. There's been a lot of offensive linemen that have made impacts. I mean, Zach Martin, what he did for Dallas way back in the day. It's actually not even that rare, to be honest with you. I mean, Creed Humphrey, I'm forgetting his name. The Ravens center that they just drafted out of Iowa, he made a big impact. Eagles, I can't remember his name. What's his name? I'm forgetting all kinds of names right now, but there's been plenty of examples of that around the NFL and in recent memory, and I'm sure there's some other players I'm forgetting as well. So, yeah, I just kind of disagree with that. The Dolphins still could easily, and honestly, it's not like they haven't gone in that direction of trying to fix the offensive line. They have, and I hope that they again put the bow on it in the draft. And the tackles positions are solidified. They have great tackles, in my opinion. Even if Taron Armstead retires, which is looking like it's going to happen, I'm confident in Patrick Paul. From what we saw last year from him as a young player, he looked phenomenal, and he looked amazing in the run game. So I'm not worried about Patrick Paul. And Austin Jackson, who just gets better every year, so I'm not worried about him either. And he's gotten a lot better in the run game, way, way better. And that was his biggest weakness, and he's gotten much, much better at that. So He's improved in his game a lot. So the tackle positions, I love Aaron Brewer at center. He didn't have the best. He had his last month of the year did not hold up to the rest of the season. I don't know if he got hurt or what happened with that, but he was phenomenal for like 90% of the year. Like, he was great. He was better than good. He was one of the best free agent signings the Dolphins made last year. He was right up there with Jonnu Smith. He was phenomenal. So he's great. He's young too, which is, I think he's only like 26 or 25. So they just really have to address this guard position. They might have some questions at backup tackle. I think that's definitely because Kendall Lamb, I think, retired officially, which is unfortunate because he was like the best backup tackle in football. So that's a problem. I'll give you I'll give you that, but it's not the biggest problem that they have. So I just wanted to talk about that. There's been a lot of that going on. There is something that Chris Perkins said, who's another longtime Dolphins beat writer, and I feel like, and again, they have good reason to be, but we have the most cynical and honestly some of the worst beat writing, I think, in the NFL. I think we have some really good ones, and then we have some like really bad ones, in my opinion. But it is what it is. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, but it was a really bad take that I just completely disagreed with, that I just wanted to mention on here, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it. Yeah, we'll move on. Here it is. I think, okay, this is what Chris Perkins said in a tweet. He said, "To me, Finns have allowed coaches Philbin Gase, Mike McDaniel to convince organization that they can work miracles with quarterbacks. They can't. So I'd rather determine my quarterback's capabilities and form from my system around his skills, and if he blossoms, we're ahead of the game." First of all, there's a lot wrong with that statement. Joe Philbin wanted to draft Derek Carr. I think that, he didn't really get that long. Joe Philbin was just a bad head coach. Adam Gase, I don't even know how to even begin with that. The owner wanted to draft Lamar Jackson. I remember at the time, Josh Allen was a possibility, and we may never know if he would have been a Dolphin or not, because obviously the Bills traded up to get him. So I honestly think that's just insanity. I don't know, like, if he just forgot those things. I don't know. And Mike McDaniel, who Chris Greer drafted Tua Tagovailoa, he would have went anywhere to coach. And I honestly don't. Who knows what Mike McDaniel's opinion is of him I don't know. I like Tua. I think he's the best quarterback since Dan Marino. So it's not even close that the Dolphins have had. And I do think they can win a playoff game with him. And I do think they can win a lot of games with Tua if they build around him the right way. So I don't know. I kind of disagree with that statement. And we're going to get into some other speculation stuff that has been, I don't even know. Like, it's just speculation, but it's been floated around a lot. All right, so let's get into some of this stuff here. I mean, even Brian Flores, who hated Tua and hated the pick, didn't want anything to do with him. He wasn't mentioned among the people Chris was mentioning, but every one of those guys tried to get a quarterback that wasn't the one that they had. So I don't know. It's just stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, okay, like, you're a beat writer for the franchise, and I can remember that stuff that happened. It's insane. Like, it's like I don't. Why they didn't draft Lamar Jackson? Who knows? Maybe if you fell that they would have done it. Maybe they just didn't want to move up. But they totally would have picked him. And they were going to pick Josh Allen that year. But the Bills hopped him. And same thing with Baltimore. They hopped him too. So, and then, I mean, it's been well documented that Derek Carr, now I'm not saying that was the right decision, but they weren't married to any of those quarterbacks. And that was before Tannehill signed that huge deal. That was 2 years after he was drafted, I believe. Maybe he had just signed it, but I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I don't remember, because Tannehill was 2012, and then Derek Carr was 2014. And there was another whole thing that the Dolphins tried to get Russell Wilson, and I don't remember what happened with that either. Anyway, this is another, okay, so there's been a lot of off-season boredom in, like, hypothetical Tyreek Hill trades. One of them has the Dolphins trading him to Los Angeles, and if somehow, now they would never do this, but if they would just let go of Sean Slater, I would make that deal in a heartbeat. They would never do that. I mean, that's like a first-team All-Pro caliber player who's still in his like early 20s, and he plays one of the most important positions in football. So they're not going to do that, and that's a very smartly ran organization. But someone I can dream. The other proposed trade would be the Dolphins trading, and a lot of like different sites have like written things about this. The Dolphins trading Tyreek Hill to the Packers. Now, there's a few reasons why I don't think this is going to happen. And the proposed trade is the Dolphins get Jair Alexander in return. Tyreek Hill is 31. Jair Alexander is 28. Now, I don't think the reason is that the Packers wouldn't want to move on from Jair Alexander. The receiver position for the Packers is not a problem. They have one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. They just lack not even depth. Like, they just have gotten really bad luck with injuries. So I don't think they're in the receiver market. Not to mention the fact they don't really invest a lot in free agency or in trades and receivers. Historically, they've done that through the draft. And then they haven't even invested first-round picks in that position. So I don't really think they value that position that much. Everything starts with the offensive line and the run game in that system. I don't think they're trading for a receiver. I just don't think that's their philosophy. And would it be a good trade for the Dolphins if this did go through to get Jair Alexander? Yeah, it would be. He doesn't want to be. He's made it very, both players have had moments of like, I don't want to play here anymore for both of their teams. He's a younger player. He's a great player. I guess it would be, and it would fill a need. So that's not the worst trade scenario in the world. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't even really think... I don't know if Tyreek Hill is actually going to be traded, and I don't think he will be. Which, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. But, we'll see. We really have to... And I can't wait for the... Like I said, for the offseason to be over, because this is a big offseason for Miami for a lot of different reasons. I think the division has gotten better with the additions of Mike Vrabel going to the Patriots. I think that they have gotten better, and we'll see how. I'm not sold. I liked Drake May coming out of the draft a lot, but he hasn't played in any meaningful games at all. So whatever. He's had some highlights and some garbage time, but he hasn't played. So we'll see. I mean, he showed flashes of really good football, but he hasn't played in any meaningful games yet. So we'll see if he can do that when a game is competitive. But they've gotten better. The Jets, I don't really care. Like, I think the Jets have gotten worse. Like, Justin Fields doesn't bother me. and I think Aaron Glenn isn't a very good coach, at least in my opinion. I don't think he's a very good defensive coordinator. That doesn't. The Jets are still the Jets, but the Bills are the Bills, but the Patriots got better. I think. They're definitely. I think Vrabel's a phenomenal head coach, which sucks. I hated it. As soon as they announced it, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! Why?" It sucks. Dallas didn't, open. Like, Dallas has to be stupid, and somehow that hurts us because apparently he really wanted to coach the Cowboys, but obviously that didn't end up working out. And who knows, maybe Mike Vrabel messes this up, because he did kind of mess Tennessee up in a lot of ways, and he didn't really handle that situation the best, but with, like, management, not necessarily him as a coach, but managing, the other side of being a head coach, which is managing personalities that manage the players in terms of, like, GM and all that stuff. Anyway, so it's a big offseason for the Dolphins, and they actually sit in a pretty good spot. I just hope they don't mess it up. This first round pick is really gonna matter. And I'm not like, a lot of people have Campbell going to Chicago at 10. Maybe they trade up and pick him. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The draft is going to be really important, and we'll see what happens with that. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't really think we have too much else to talk about. And the Dolphins could not spend a ton of money. Like, they maybe could have gotten another starter at a position, maybe, especially if they restructured. And I don't honestly think losing Javon, like, the more I thought about Javon Holland, the less I'm upset that he's gone. So, and his market wasn't, like, the fact that he got paid so little. Now, the bad part is like, yeah, he's 20, like, you at least sign the man. He's too young and too good to be like, oh, and he's not even getting paid top market money. That's a head scratching. But I think they were literally divorced. I don't think Javon Holland wanted to stay, and I don't think the Dolphins really appreciated what he said. And maybe he has been a locker room headache, He was the most vocal one about Vic Fangio, and we've seen what Vic Fangio has done, not only in Miami, but in Philadelphia. Like, people forget, like, yeah, Vic was annoying. I'm not saying he wasn't, but he didn't, and he had some bad moments defensively, but he did set the franchise record in sacks, and he did have some really good moments. And maybe if this defense didn't get hurt, he would have left Miami in better graces, and maybe he would have brought a playoff win to Miami if the whole roster didn't fall apart. But yeah, Javon Holland and him didn't get along, and he's had some locker room problems. So I don't know. At this point, I'm just rambling. The point is this draft is important. We'll see what happens. Some people have brought up, oh, maybe there's an offensive lineman that gets let go. Normally when that happens, it's not worth it. You're definitely not going to get a good tackle that's just going to be let go out of nowhere, and maybe you get a good guard. And that's probably definitely a higher probability. So I don't know. I hope they address it, and please get Campbell. Campbell is the dream, everybody. Campbell, if they draft Campbell out of LSU, the Dolphins are going to win at least 10 games. Just write that down on a piece of paper. I really do believe that. I think the additions of Daniels, that's just a really good offensive line. And God bless it if we can go into every week thinking that to ourselves, like, hey, we can hold up on the line of scrimmage against pretty much everybody. And I think Mike McDaniel is going to have I'm talking a big-time resurgence. And they still have Devon Achane. We all love Jalen Wright as a prospect. I think Alexander Madison is a very good pickup for them and a pretty good power back who's really been very productive throughout his even for the Raiders last year. So, just saying, that's going to be a big deal for this offense. And, I think they're going to win a lot of games if they do that. And they can compete with the whole thing about, oh, they can't travel in cold weather. Them competing with higher echelon teams with better, they can do that. And then you can just let Mike scheme it up. And I just hope and just nail that position. And I think the Dolphins are going to be pretty good, pretty formidable. So yeah, and they got Zach Wilson as their backup quarterback, which I think was a phenomenal move. So that, and I know, people probably rolling their eyes, but I really like Zach Wilson as a player. So I think that was a good move, and I think he's young too, very talented, much better than what they had in previous seasons. But yeah, I'm just hoping for an offensive lineman in the draft. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.